I want to apologise again for there not being an episode of Talk Cardboard last week because I tried to poke my eye out on a plant. However, the good news is that I did not succeed and my eye is getting better.
What's the bad news, Elaine?
The bad news is that there was not an episode of Talk Cardboard last week. But the good news is there is one this week.
You shattered your cornea.
I have to take eye drops for a year. That's kind of the bottom line. Because otherwise, and I'm not going to go into detail, but bad things
Elaine,
can happen.
You were downplaying it. It's going to take a year to heal your shattered cornea. So
yeah, but I can see again.
Sort of. Let's adjust expectations accordingly, okay? Because currently, you literally cannot play board games.
Right, which is very upsetting.
Yeah, it is. I think for both of us, but also, I just want people to know that like there might be some gaps in Talk Cardboard because the board game playing is currently not happening. So we've had some games we played in the bank, and that's what today's episode is.
Welcome to Talk Cardboard, a podcast about board games and everything adjacent, with me, Elaine, and you.
Me, adjacent. On
this episode, we are going to be talking about Sunderfolk, which is not a board game. It's a board game adjacent. And I always say board games and everything adjacent, and we don't often cover the adjacent. So
I stole your thunder. You wanted to do adjacent, and
we can be both
adjacent myself next to your adjacent.
Nice. We can both be adjacent. We are adjacent to each other currently.
Neither of us are adjacent.
No, that's true.
But we are adjacent.
But first, let's talk about our work in progress.
Sometimes you play the same silly game 2 weeks in a row. And this time it was Reiner Knizia's fruit fight.
It was.
We fought the fruit. I have to say that I did not win against the fruit. That watermelon eventually got me.
You know you're not supposed to be fighting against the fruit itself, right?
Oh.
You're playing against other people.
With the fruit?
I don't think you're supposed to have an actual fruit. Are you playing the game correctly, or have we been talking about this game wrong?
If you chuck a watermelon at another person, that's assault and battery. I don't want to do that. I just want to fight with the fruit.
What about if you chuck a card at someone that has a watermelon on it?
That's also assault and battery.
Okay, that's no better.
Yeah, don't do that. No, Fruit Fight's a great game. You continue to enjoy it.
And we played it with a different group as well.
We just played it. We had some friends over who said, do you want to play a silly game? Play a silly game. And that was it. It was nice. I like Fruit Fight. It's good.
And they like the art too.
Do you know what? One thing, talking of the magenta line, I found out magenta is not a color. It doesn't exist. Like, it literally does not exist. Our brains made it up because we needed, like, to identify berries. No one knows. No one even knows. It just, like, it's not on the wavelength of colors. So it's not out there. It's something entirely fabricated by the human brain.
Why is it called magenta? It's such a nice word, isn't it?
Is it? It feels a bit,
it's like magnets or something.
Poncy.
All right then.
Look at me, I'm magenta.
What else have we been playing, Efka?
Elaine, you taught me a little card game called Tenby.
I did.
I thought it was 10 by, like by 10, like multiplication.
Well, did you really?
No.
Oh.
But it's Tenby, which is apparently a place in Wales.
Yeah, it's the seaside.
Yeah? And is the designer Welsh as well?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So a Celtic themed game.
Sorry, not the designer. The designer, the artist, and the music. What do you call it?
Soundtrack.
Composer. The soundtrack composer. Yes.
All the same person.
All the same person.
I just like that there's a Celtic themed game designed by a designer who is Celtic from the country that they are, I don't want to say exploit. Can you exploit your own country? I don't think that's a thing. You can, though.
Well, it's a game about the seaside.
I know.
It's not, it's not very, deep into their history.
No, I know it isn't. But there's oftentimes you see here's a game about Ireland and there's leprechauns and it's all green and it's designed by some French dude. It just doesn't make any sense. And this time it's nice. It's a game about Wales designed by a Welsh person. I like that. Yeah, it's actually quite lovely. I was surprised by it. It is a tableau builder, like the example that springs to mind right now for some reason is Forest Shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's about the same weight and the same complexity and the same kind of breadth of game as Forest Shuffle, where there's a lot of different point scoring opportunities, a nice little card selection mechanism. Like you can go earlier, but you forego like certain like efficiency of how many cards you pick up, but also you are first to grab cards, and there's really not a lot out there that's available. So if there's something there that you really want, you kind of want to go first, right? There's some nice balancing there. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to playing more of it. My initial kind of instinct of it is that it's not quite as dynamic and robust as Forest Shuffle, but for an indie game, it's a really lovely design and surprisingly really, really good. I don't know what I'm saying surprisingly, like I guess because I've never played anything by that designer before.
It's the first game.
Yeah, it's the first game, so I was like, oh, this is actually quite good, and I'm really enjoying it and would have no qualms about recommending it.
And it has bins and seagulls.
Yeah,
which is something you don't often see put front and center in board games.
I know collecting seagulls felt cool. I was like, yeah, this card has 4 seagulls, and if I place it next to this card, which gives me points for seagulls, I'm like, yeah, I'm winning.
The artwork is very cute too. On the point of seagulls, the art is super cute. Like the clouds have smiley faces on and stuff. So I think I like the art better than you, more than you.
I think it's flat colors, so I'm like, not.
It is like a children's like mural.
Yeah,
on a
sure.
wall. Yeah,
but it also has that MS Paint bucket fill quality to it. That
I like that a lot.
You like it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did. It was very cute. Because you're looking for lots of different things on the cards too, because you want to place the cards next to each other that are relevant to each other, right? For the scoring
purposes. And you have to scan the artwork for it.
So you're scanning the artwork and
the
you go,
cards
it's
are
a seagull,
big.
it's a flower, it's a, yeah, it's cute.
Although having said that, like I thought, well, maybe the cards could be bigger, but it kind of like Forest Shuffle sprawls across your table. So I'm actually glad.
Imagine if they were like A4 cards.
Yeah, no. A4?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know, because you said you wanted it bigger. You didn't state how much bigger.
Like, oh yeah, imagine if every card was poster size. Well, what?
Okay, should we move on to another game that we've played?
Oh no, that means I have to talk about Deep Regrets. And do I have deep regrets playing Deep Regrets, buying Deep Regrets? I think I might.
Do you know what? So before you start talking about the game itself, the first player decider is the person who has the biggest regret. That's what you told me.
No, it's who's had the worst day so far.
The worst day, right? And so we played that game, and then that evening I poked my eye out, and you said, because you thought, I don't know why, you thought you'd try and cheer me up or something. You said, if we were going to play that again, it would be you now. you would get to go first. And I was like, shut up. I am miserable right now. Go away.
Just for the sake of like painting a picture, I said that at a time when Elaine was literally crying.
Yes, I was.
It didn't work. I didn't cheer you up. But
I appreciate that you tried.
Okay,
You're
good.
very kind.
So Deep Regrets riffs on a similar setting as a recent video game called Dredge, which is a sort of a self-build horror fishing game. So this is also a horror fishing game in terms that it sort of has oh God, I hate this term so much. Vaguely Lovecraftian vibe.
Because it's under the sea and it's monsters.
Yeah, deep horrors lurk, and the word madness in quotation marks is thrown about liberally. Yeah, I was kind of on board with that. I don't like when board games use that term, but sometimes I feel like, all board games are abstractions. So when board games try to abstract concepts like trauma or, like difficult stuff, they might abstract it into a term like madness. I don't think that's better. I think you could definitely find a better word, because this is not a word that's stuck around. It's gone out of fashion. People don't use it. And there is a good reason for it, because there is no such thing as madness. You can say like, I'm mad, I'm angry, but like, I don't think that like in that sense, in the kind of like mental health sense, it even means really anything.
Okay. But like maybe a term like chaos would have been better or something like that.
I think like trauma even, just be like the game is 16 plus, right? That's on the and
we found out why.
Yeah, for good reason, right? Anyway, it is silly. It's not taking itself seriously. It is very, very silly. You can play as a person or a fish person, and you are fishing out various different things from the sea. So the principle is that there's 3 tiers, and the deeper in the tiers you go, the more chance you have of fishing foul fish rather than fair fish. But foul fish score you more points, but they can cause more quote unquote madness. And there's this whole mechanism where like the more madness you have, the more kind of dice you can roll, the more you kind of sort of given up on being restrained as a human being, and you're just kind of going all out, and I kind of, on the face of it, I like the pitch of that, where it's like, which way are you going to, kind of flip? Are you going to play it safe and, try to use less dice, which are effectively your actions, and, maybe just score some nice fish? But in our playthrough, it felt very much like, oh, there's no reason to do that. You just want to go as far into the madness as possible. And in a 2-player game especially, it felt like it's a race for who has more madness, because you are limited as to how many like trauma cards or whatever they're called that you can have. And so it kind of worked counter against, I think, the stated intent of the game. If that makes sense.
And the thing that you haven't mentioned is that the reason why you would not want these regret cards is because if you have the most...
They're called regret, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, at the end of the game, you will kind of lose some of your scoring opportunity, but not loads.
Yeah, like, funnily enough, it felt like catching foul fish and this higher point values that they produce offsets that anyway.
Yeah.
So... yeah, it was kind of weird and wonky. And I think my main dislike of the game was that the central mechanism just isn't that interesting. You flip a card and spend dice whether you want to catch it or not. And that's kind of all you do. You flip a card, right? The game is also exceedingly random. And I didn't so much have a problem with that, because I'm okay with randomness. It's just that, like, it wasn't the fun kind of random. It wasn't like, like... I don't know, there's like, for example, special abilities, you get reels and rods. And in effect, it was like, oh, some of these reels are really good and some of these reels are good. So, I guess I'll...
yeah, that was weird, wasn't it?
There wasn't much about it I enjoyed. I didn't like the central mechanism. I didn't like the use of the term madness. I didn't like the weirdly weighted, like, oh, are you going to go for the madness or not the madness? I didn't like the madness as a term. I really liked, however, the art and the presentation and the flavor text. That was all done exceptionally well. It's a game that looks just great on the table. It makes you want to engage with it. And it looked as good as Dredge, perhaps even better.
I just want to mention why it's a 16 plus. So there's no kind of sex or anything like that in it. It's all to do with unaliving.
Oh no, sir. I'm sorry, I'm out.
That is what some of these regrets entail. That's what they're talking about. And it's not like graphic or anything like that, but they do mention these things, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's why it's a 16 plus.
Nice use of the term unaliving.
Well, yeah, I don't
think the podcast algorithm is.
No, but I don't know.
Google can flag it, like, so you're kind of like barred on Google Podcasts from Yeah, like people are listening to everything now. The algorithms are listening to everything. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anywho, yeah, that's another thing I actually liked about the game, the flavor text of the regrets, whereas like you get to read out at the end of the game like all the regrets that you've accumulated. And
I like the one that said you spat on a Bible. That was one of my regrets.
Yeah, it's quite funny, and like the rulebook suggests to weave a tale out of it of like, I don't know, it's kind of shonky but charming at the same time. So, contrary to what I said before, I don't have regrets playing it. I guess I just regret buying it. It just wasn't ultimately that fun.
Do we have any correspondence this week, Efka, which as a special guest you are reading out?
I'm not a special guest. I'm on the podcast every time.
As a special guest correspondence reader for this
Okay, Elaine
time.
cannot see, so I have to read the emails. Hi, Elaine. I'm not Elaine. This is from Alex, by the way. Alex wrote a very long email that covers multiple things, but I will read out the section that is relevant to the previous subject of the podcast, which was rival cities. Always love hearing different takes. So listening to you talking about rival cities reminded me of Splotter games, punishing, not for everyone, and tough on new players. I've been playing repeatedly with the same person, and we had some amazing attacks and counters, close saves, and devastating openings. One time, my opponent read the order of actions in that particular game well, and ended the first season with a huge lead in popularity before I realized there weren't any more chances for me to catch up that round, resulting in him getting tons of resources as an end-of-round reward. The game seemed lost already, but somehow I managed to hold him off just long enough and sneak past him via free boats. It was amazing. Situations like this is where Rival Cities truly shines. However, I then tried to introduce it to someone else, and in both plays, the game was over within 2 rounds. That person was like, "Well, it's all right," despite having been looking forward to playing it for a while. Rival Cities might just be a case of an edge honed too sharp. Anyway, shame you didn't enjoy it. For me, one of the best 2-player games I've discovered in a while, and what a lovely production. By the way, at least in my place, ships have a slight edge over cities in winning. I find cities relatively easy to counter because there are not that many ways to gain letters and therefore easy to control. Court cases are more for the long game, and I've never seen someone win via popularity, though someone got close once. So that's...
You read that very nicely. I just want to say that.
Thank you. That's definitely a different, take than ours. And it's a take I appreciate because I can, like I said, I can totally see someone really digging into this game. And if anything, it highlights kind of one of our criticisms. It's that, you really need to, like, I guess, love and enjoy the system. And if you do, and you have someone else who loves and enjoys that meanness, that sharpness in the 2-player setting, which 2 players for me is tough because you want it to be an icebreaker, right? Because 2 players is very intimate, but you also don't want it to be like so cutthroat that it can create that sort of, like a slight sense of discomfort. Do you know what I mean?
An icebreaker.
Well, I mean, I've talked about this in our video for 2-player games, right? Like, 2-player is a more intimate environment, right? So it depends on how well you know the person and how comfortable you are playing games with them. But like great 2-player games will account for that,
yes.
right? So
I see.
if you're just playing a 2-player game with someone who's just gonna, trounce you, right? And the game like makes that very easy, then yeah, it's kind of weird, right? I can absolutely see some people really loving Rival Cities. I just think there are 2-player games that are as sharp, but also have that sort of, rubber banding where it's not just outright, what? You're stomped, That's for me, that's just basically, why when there are others. But then again, there will be people like Alex for whom this will be perfect.
let's talk about our main feature, which is Sunderfolk. And it is a game that is not just a board game that you play on a table. In fact, you don't play it on a table at all, but you play it on your telly.
That's very exciting. I just want to say to people that if you're currently hearing mouse sounds, this isn't me. This is our dog Bessie, who is currently closer to the microphone than I am. I cannot be closer than her because she got her face in front of the mic and she's not moving it. Currently, she's licking her paw.
Do you think it's ASMR?
It's something.
It's not horrendous mouse sounds. Squeak, squeak, mouth sounds.
I don't even know what ASMR stands for. I just said it's something MR, but MR might mean words that...
Do you know, I used to know what it stood for and I can't remember. I'm sorry.
Magnetic resonance.
Like an MRI machine?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's not talk about that, thanks. Let's talk about the game.
Yeah, so Sunderfolk is a hybrid, I guess is the best word. And I would say it is the best of both worlds. For me, it works both as a video game and as a board game. And I think that is an incredibly rare achievement because what we often see is either, digital adaptations of board games, which feel like the lesser cousin. Do you know what I mean? and there's also, games that are inspired by board game mechanisms. So, Slay the Spire or Blueprints. And to me, Slay the Spire is great. I really don't like Blueprints, but let's not get into that right now.
Because you're the only one, it seems.
Yeah. So
I've never played it, so I can't comment.
They don't quite feel like board games. They feel like their own thing, which this isn't. This is kind of both because it takes what board game inspired video games do, right? But it also makes it co-op, so it feels like a board game, and it makes it couch co-op, so it's something that you play in the same room.
Settee.
Yeah. Together with people, you're sharing the experience, which is kind of what board games do, But on top of all of that, it understands the space it creates. It understands the sort of almost new medium that it is creating and how to facilitate that new medium. And it zeroes in on really smart design choices that elevate every moment of it. So I feel like I said a lot of really big words here, but we haven't actually spoken about what it is. So can you give us a rundown of what you do in Sunderfolk?
I want to say that I agree that I think this game is pretty special because, like you said, it knows what it is and it knows how to deliver that experience. And it's a very good example of it. So this game is, as I said, you don't play it on a table. You're all sharing a telly screen. So you play it on a Switch or an Xbox or a PC, or you use one of those devices to power it. I'm an old person. I'm using bad terminology, but you know what I mean. But then you also have your own personal, if you have a tablet or a phone, you use that to control and move your character. So you're all playing different characters. And it's a dungeon crawler like Gloomhaven or Descent. And Descent is more pertinent because...
So a lot of people have compared this to Gloomhaven. I think that is the wrong comparison to make, but we'll get into that. So this was designed by Cara Centel-Dung, who was the lead designer on Descent 3rd edition. And a lot of that ethos carries over. Now, I understand why the Gloomhaven comparison is being made, is because there are some superficial similarities. So you have a hex-based movement, or you have an attack modifier deck, and unique characters and such, and you play cards to do things. But that's about as close as the comparison gets. Everything after that is very different.
And even within those things, they are very different representations here from Gloomhaven.
So, for example, right, this is maybe my favorite kind of thing that's different mechanically is that in Gloomhaven you have the attack modifier deck, and you do here as well. So, but the way that it works is very different because you effectively have 3 positive, 4 neutral, and 3 negative cards. Like whenever you attack a creature, you'll draw a card from an attack modifier deck, and this card will say +1, so that would be a positive, right? Or +0, that would be a neutral, or -2, that would be a negative. Right? Get that -2 out of here. Well, you can. This is the thing. Your attack modifier deck has exact quotas of how many of each type of card you can include. So if you have 3 negative cards, and you have a -1, -1, and a -2, and then you get another -1, you're like, oh, great. I'll just replace the -2 with the -1. So that's a no-brainer kind of decision. But then later you, let's say, get a card that's -2, but with a buff.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, right? Maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's not worth it. But then you get like this other items that says, oh, every time you draw a -2, here's a little bonus. And you're like, oh no, things are happening, right? The game is asking me to make tough choices.
And you get a lot of different attack modifier cards. The game is very generous, generally. Like, it's a lot more friendly than Gloomhaven.
Oh my god, yeah. So much more.
Yeah, but it is also freer. There is a lot more availability of like items that you can buy like immediately. And there is a lot more availability of things like attack modifiers.
And I think you're keying into the very important thing here, which is that the ethos of this game is very different to Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven is, like the first mission is get good or die, right?
Yes.
Like, and you're like, oh, I guess we all better like really crunch, right? That does not work in a couch co-op environment because you're not at a table, right? You're not all analyzing all of these things all the time, you're not like leaning over this thing. You're sitting on your couch, chillaxed,
right? I think
with your
mentally
friends.
It changes that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's less serious. Like if you're at a table, that's the serious thing. You have meetings around tables, you have interviews around tables. But like when you're sitting on your settee, you're chilling out, you're having a nice time. So you're right, yeah.
Yeah, so there's this moment of like, first you encounter this thing, and if you heard anything, it's like Gloomhaven, you're like, oh, right, okay, I guess I better hunker down and think about what I'm going to do. And then the game is really breezy, and you're like, I want this to get hard, right? And it does. Like the first 3 tutorial missions are super like, just do things, and it doesn't really, you can't
but
really
not boring.
lose. Yeah.
Not uninteresting.
It achieves interest in different ways. But then as the game progresses, it sort of picks that difficulty up. I will say it's spiky. It kind of goes up and down. But there is an element of like, oh, this mission's actually hard. Not ever as hard as Gloomhaven, but it does require you to strategize and talk to the people in the room and see how you can achieve this like thing together rather than just, oh, I'll do whatever I want and play whatever I want.
It is very collaborative, cooperative in that way. Like because there is no like rule book, it does not have a definition of what you can and can't say to people. So you can literally say, I'm going to play this card, which does this. How do you feel about this? Like, and you can all talk and figure out what is the best move for you and what is the best move for other people.
And this only works because you have this really fantastic implementation of the smartphone app, right? So you can play this on an iPad as well. We're playing it on an iPad, and I guess you have a slightly bigger screen, so it's easier to control. So that works fine as well. But I think this would be pretty easy on a regular smartphone as well. And so the reason all of this works is because how well the app works. So first of all, no hitches.
It's so smooth.
It's so very smooth. Nothing happens in it that's just like, oh, this is clunky or I don't know, like, no, it just works. And it works really, really well. Like if you want to move, you just draw a line and it moves you, right? Like it's as simple as that. And if you don't want to move, it always double checks with you. It goes, wait, is that what you want to do? And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Did your sausage fingers move somewhere you don't want to really go? Yes, says Elaine. Okay, never mind, says the app.
But it never feels like a chore or a bother to correct it, because you're like, oh yeah, okay, no, I want to go into this hex, not that one. Like the destination is fine. So you can always trace back and kind of like just correct yourself. So it's really nice. It works really well. And also there's this other thing where like on your phone, it's just like a blueprint, right? You don't actually see the map. You have to look at the telly. And the reason that's so good, I think, is it's an example of the game knowing where to direct your attention at all times, because you are playing on phones and we're stuck on phones all the time.
Yes.
We have this instinctual habit of like, oh, I'm on the phone, I'm going to faff, right? And it really, this is just one example of it. It really knows very well when to direct your attention towards the screen, or when to direct your attention towards the phone, or when to get you to speak to the other people in the room.
Yeah, the game knows to differentiate when you're using your phone as a controller, how to represent that so that you're not staring at your phone whilst you're trying to move your character, that you are engaging with the game itself on the telly. I think that's really smart. And it also sometimes on your phone says, look up at the telly, because something is happening on the telly. And whilst it says that, you can't do anything else in the app. You can't faff about with your character. You can't, sort out your modifier deck or whatever. Like, you have to look at the telly and pay attention.
I want to talk a little bit about our characters because I really enjoy playing them. So the theme of Sunderfolk is his animals dressed in clothing. It's cutesy. I don't mind cutesy. I just the whole animals in clothing.
Did I do that to you? Because it's like, no, I don't like animals in clothing.
No, I was okay with them before the board games decided to descend upon them. Once board games figured out that, we can do anything we like as long as it's animals in clothing, it's fine, because let's do mafia, but mafia like murder each other. It's quite dark. Animals in clothing mafia, once they figured this out, right?
What's going to be next?
Please stop,
I see.
But no, this isn't even that. This is very family friendly, right?
My character bucks that trend because my character is naked.
Well, again, in a world of animals in clothing, it is fine to run around naked. Yeah. If this was a board game where just people and everyone was wearing clothes, but one character is like, I'm nude, it would be very inappropriate. But because your character is a salamander.
Yeah.
And the salamander is naked because the clothes
I'm made of fire
all the time. You're not made of fire. You just
I'm made of fire, Efka.
Symbolically, you are made of fire.
Yes.
So I guess that's the thing that your character does, which is make fire on hexes and then walk into that fire to get bonus.
Or leave that fire there to do damage to enemies.
If they walk into it. But so that's like layer 1. But here's like where it goes further. If you walk into a hex, good, you get a bonus. If an enemy walks into a hex, good, because it damages them. If my character walks into fire, oh, bad, right? So then you have to be careful about like where you create fire, because you don't want to cut off the pathways for anyone else you might be playing with, and that's very clever. Right.
And again, it encourages that communication between because there were times when I was showing you if I put fire here, is that fine for you? Or is that going to really mess you up? So, and the way that the app works is that you can put on this setting. So you can move, but it won't actually move your character. You're not really doing anything. You effectively have a laser pointer that you're just showing the other person on the telly where you want to move, or you can show them something on the map like, oh, look at this thing, have you seen this?
I love this thing so much. it made me realize that retroactively all digital implementations of board games should have this. Like Gloomhaven Digital, I don't want this game to be Gloomhaven, but I want Gloomhaven that you can play in co-op with like a laser pointer, you know? I almost swore there because like it just makes so much sense. And why does no one have this? Because what do you do naturally at a board game table? You point at things, right? And it is especially important in a tactical game, right? So if you don't have this thing that you can point and say, I'm pointing here, which you do in Tabletop Simulator, by the way.
So it's not but it makes that annoying plonky noise.
Right? Yeah. With the plonky noise is great because you really, it's like the dauber in Magic Maze. It's like, you know,
right.
Yeah.
No, I don't like that plonky noise.
It is a very tinny sounding plonky noise. Anyway, I don't want to say revolutionary because it's a silly word, but also like this has existed before, like in TTS. But why do others not have it? It doesn't make any sense. We were playing Gloomhaven on co-op, and it was excruciating, the digital version, right? Like because you need to strategize, and you can't because there's no pointer. Right? It just doesn't make any sense. So I'm so glad that this thing exists. I'm sorry I went on a little rant here,
but that's
like right. I love this pointer function. I agree with you so much.
I agree with you. It's the sort of thing where you go, why isn't this just done all the time?
Right? Can I talk about my bat character a little bit?
To.
So I play as a bat that is a bard, and obviously that makes sense because bats hear things.
Yeah, they're very good hearing. Bats.
And what is music if not hearing?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's a marriage made in heaven. And so I create music notes as a bat. And what a music note is a random buff. So when you make a music note, it will turn into a +1 strength or a +1 shield or +1 health. How do I do that? Well, my various abilities let me like create music notes. So for example, the basic abilities like attack an enemy and there's a music note that appears randomly next to one of the hexes of the enemy. So that's fine. But also I have this like cool innate ability where normally in the game, when you walk, you can, with friendly characters, you can swap spaces, right? But when you do it with me, A, it doesn't cost movement, and B, it creates a music note, and you can do that twice per round. So the reason I really like this mechanism is that like it encourages me to talk to other players on their turn and pay attention like to what's happening on the screen, because I want to utilize this ability as much as possible, because the more I do it, the better it is for everyone, right? And so whenever anyone else is next to me, I'm like, hey, walk for me, right? Like, because, you know, you'll get further and there's a little bonus, you know, and that bonus might even be the exact thing like that you need, because if you're low on health and I create like a health power up, that's amazing. And sometimes, of course, it's not a health power up, it's like +1 strength. It's like, I don't need this. But
then
it's
it
fine.
Doesn't matter because you sort of just leave it and then maybe you'll need it later.
Exactly, right? But the thing that I like even more, and this is what this mechanism made me realize that's so great about Sunderfolk, is that there's no rulebook. And the reason that's good is because it's different, right? When you play a board game in a physical space, you have to read the rulebook because there's no like magical computer to make all the moves for you, right? Or correct your moves. Here, you can't make a wrong move. The rules are taken care of for you. But as a consequence of that, you don't need to read a rule book, so you don't need to learn all the rules. So then you can discover the rules organically, and it feels like you just like unlocked a new level, right? Like, oh, I didn't know this worked. You know, so for example, my music notes, and this is a very simple example. If I walk over them or an ally walks over them, great. But what happens when an enemy walks over them? Well, what turns out what happens is that they don't get buffed, but they do take away the buff. So when you learn that, you're like, oh, that's how that works. So now I can kind of like factor that into my strategizing. And so the depth kind of, it's an onion thing.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Or a leek.
Yeah.
Or in any kind of allium, right?
Yeah, any kind of allium, really.
Except a chive.
Or a garlic. Well, no, because there's a germ inside the garlic, so it does have layers, if you think about it.
Right, and we also, because the game is that little bit more light, there were times when we would both be like, I'm just going to try this thing. I'm not sure if it's going to work. It might go horribly wrong, but it might be amazing. And we did those things.
Because there's space for you to just try things, because like, okay, if I just try something, we're probably not going to lose. Like, depends on how hard the scenario is, because sometimes you're just like, hey, don't do that right now. It's like, but sometimes you just take risks because you have that room to take risks that you don't normally in a physical board game, because physical board games are so tight. There's this like, we must crunch all the time or we'll lose. Whereas here, it's not that you don't have to crunch, it's that you don't have to crunch all of the time. And sometimes the reins are looser and you can just go, you know what, I'm just going to do something for funsies.
I think what adds to that is that you only take 3 cards into any combat. So you don't have like 10 cards that everyone is like looking at their own cards all the time trying to think, oh, shall I do this? Shall I do this? You're invested in what the other person is doing on the screen. You have such a limited choice of what you can do that your brain power isn't taken up by thinking turns ahead. And I think that makes it even more collaborative in that, in the sense that you can try something, or maybe you shouldn't at this point, but your options are quite limited. And also you can do the same ability over and over again if you need to. If that is the appropriate ability to do, you can just play that card again and again.
What I also really like is how different each mission feels. The beginning missions, the tutorial missions, there's 3 tutorial missions at the beginning, and then, you kind of let loose into the game proper. And even the missions after that, they feel a bit loosey-goosey. But then as things tighten up, there's this real kind of sense of each mission having its own thing. So there's 3 types of missions. There's combat, exploration, and also puzzle, right? And like, I really like the puzzle missions because they always have like this weird mechanical quirk that, again, the first puzzle mission we did was quite simple, but then the ones after that were like, whoa, okay, there's like things happening here that are quite unusual to everything else that we've played. And even the ones that aren't puzzle missions, it feels like I'm never quite doing the same thing. So the scenario design is really good. But on top of that, you don't get to play every mission. So there's main missions that you will encounter, but side missions, you will not play through all of them. And so because there's like multiple different characters that you could play, it's very, I just, as soon as I finish this game, I think I'm going to boot it up from the start again.
Different character?
Yeah, different character. Yeah, and then you get to try the other missions. And on top of that, there's this town phase that has so many different characters that you can speak to. And when you speak to them, you have individual conversations. So if you speak to someone, you do that on your phone, and I don't get to witness that conversation. I get to speak to someone, you don't witness that. But then there's too many to speak to all of them. Yes. You can't exhaust these conversations. You're limited in how many you can do. So again, that feels like on a future playthrough, I could explore like different relationships with characters, and how that influences the narrative and the campaign structure overall. Just so many things happening here.
And the missions that you do affect how people react to you in the town. But also, I just wanted to mention that, because you said about the puzzle scenarios and the adventure scenarios, they do all have some combat. It's not like they're just the puzzle.
Puzzles,
they all have some combat in them.
So one last element to mention is that, again, like I said before, the game knows when to pull your attention and, from the screen to the phone or from the phone to the group, right? And the other way it achieves that is through these conversations that are outside of the missions with the various characters of the game. So first of all, the characters are really well written. There's this penguin called Peril. I absolutely hate him. He is just the worst. Just Peril, your dog, okay?
Yeah.
You are a nasty piece of work and I don't like you. But his niece Amelia is so adorable and I want everything in the world for Amelia. She is so great. And so they're really well written. Again, it's a very family friendly kind of thing, and what I like about that is that sometimes you will get these snippets of text that are delivered to you and only to you, right? Nobody else sees that. And who gets that and when is determined randomly, but sort of doled out evenly. And what that does is that, like, when you get something like that, you immediately go, oh, I just learned something, right? And you're talking to other people in the room and it feels so natural, but I can see the design strings in there where, like, they thought about not just what the game is mechanically, but how to deliver this game to people in a way that, like, the room constantly feels lively. And I just think that that's so great. The other thing it does is it sort of adapts that idea of legacy games from board games. And the way it does that here is that it lets you, and only you, like, so one person at a random time will get to name, like, a random thing. It might be like an ability that you own, or it might be like something in town that, like, everyone will see. And so whatever you name it, that's permanent, right? Yes. So you can write, like, I don't know, you can name the town hall, like, the outhouse or whatever, right? But then...
I feel like you're referring to the fact that because I couldn't see well,
right,
I made a typo when I was naming something, and then you decided to continue that typo when you could name something. I thought that was quite mean.
I mean, it's not even a particularly funny typo. You just accidentally capitalized the S after the apostrophe. I was like, okay, we're capitalizing every S after the apostrophe. I thought that was quite funny. It's a callback, you made a funny, and then I made the same funny.
I have an entire relationship with my brother who you've never met and know nothing about, right?
Right? Yeah.
I think that's fun. Like, you don't even have the opportunity to speak to him. Like, he doesn't come up as
I don't know who your brother is. To, like, right? For all I know, it's like some sort of, one of those Fight Club things where like, I am Tyler Durden.
Well, you think my brother is my imagination.
Yeah.
Well, my imaginary brother is a complete twonk as well. So,
okay. So I've heard, but, complete mystery to me.
I keep going, not this. Yeah, it's a lot of fun that you get to explore. And you build up the town as well. So more kind of businesses open as you help different characters, and more things become available to you. And it just opens out quite a lot.
I love everything about this game. I think it's really great. I do have one criticism. It's not a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination. And it's not a deal breaker because of how good everything else is. But I'm going to borrow a phrase from So Very Wrong About Games. The plot is a baby plot for babies. It's just so not good. It is like, it's not like, I'm not saying that this is too family friendly or whatever. It is. But, like, you have a Pixar film. It's a family friendly film. But then there's something still interesting about it. There's a wink for the adults, or there's like a subversion of a trope or whatever. It doesn't feel like you're watching the same snooze fest over and over again. And the plot, specifically the plot, not the characterization, which is great, right? The plot specifically is so basic and so tropey and so, like, nothing out of the ordinary is happening. It's like every fantasy trope distilled to its essence and presented bear cloth,
Bear cloth.
Bear cloth.
Cloth made of bear.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I don't know. I don't love it, right? I wish it was somehow more exciting. We've only finished Act 1. There's 3 acts, so maybe something will happen that will really take things for a spin. But like anything that's kind of telegraphing, I can tell where it's going. And when it gets there, it's like, no, really? Oh, I couldn't have predicted that this was happening. Like, duh. I just...
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I agree. There's not a very exciting main plot, but it didn't bother me that much. I think because, first of all, like you said, the characterization is so good, and you're getting all the individual little stories when you're in town, and that made up for it a lot because, the voice acting is also so good.
So this is Anjali Bhimani, who voiced Symmetra in Overwatch, by the way.
Right. Every voice is different. And so you can tell, and they're such different personalities. So I love that. And the second thing is that because the encounters all felt different, they're, little stories in themselves. And so I didn't really care that much about what the main plot was doing. I know what it is. I know what our kind of goals are, but that wasn't the thing I was focused on.
Look, it's not, like I said, it's not a deal breaker. It's just the one thing that stuck out. When everything else is so good, right? You kind of want the whole package.
Sure, yeah.
And it's just one thing kind of pulling me back. I liked it. I think, okay, in all honesty, I think maybe for some people who really got their teeth on Gloomhaven, there might be a jarring moment of like, oh, this is very freewheeling, like, and I think it has to be because it is suited for this medium of couch co-op, right? And that works for me. I don't want this to be Gloomhaven. I want a digital Gloomhaven that works as well as this. Don't get me wrong, right? Like, wouldn't that be great? But this is a thing of its own. It doesn't need that Gloomhaven comparison, despite us using it extensively. It is what it is, and it's really good. I highly recommend it.
That's all the games we have for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And with that, why don't you say goodbye, Efka?
Goodbye, Efka.
Goodbye, Efka.